Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here for this professional development program workshop on creating or crafting an impressive curriculum vitae or CV. So here, as you all know, some of you might know, these workshops are meant to help our students as they are in the program, and also even as they graduate from the program. Some of these workshops are helpful. So this term, the workshops are mainly helped or focused on helping our students beyond the GTU as they prepare for the job market. So in that light, we have workshops on teaching philosophy, how to write a diversity statement. And in the upcoming, in a couple of weeks, we also have something called on how to maintain your social profile on social media so as to attract academicians, or how to present yourself as an academician. One of our students, Victoria Price, who is in the marketing and recruitment, she will be presenting on that. But today, the workshop is on how to craft a impressive CV. And we have with us Dr. Eric C.S., who is one of our own. He was at the GTU until 2018, 19. Is that what it? I don't
So
remember.
actually, I was trying to remember for today
I'm sorry.
when all this happened. No, I barely remember myself. I remember I finished in August 2021. I defended, and then this May 2022 is when I went and
I see. I
I
see.
walked. Yeah.
Yes. So Dr. Eric was our student, and he is currently at the Berkeley School of Theology as assistant professor there. And he is also leading a program on Latino studies there. And he has worn several hats while he was at the GTU. He was also a member of SASC. He was on the DEI committee and multiple other things that he did. So it is such a privilege to have you, Eric, on this day to be our presenter. And thank you so much for taking the time. So with that being said, I will give it over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for a nice introduction. Welcome for those of you who are here, and for those of you listening in the later recording. Hello. Um, yeah, so we were doing a little bit of brief introductions now. Just introduction for me. I was in the not the sacred text department. I was in more of the one before that. So I was biblical studies. So I was one of the last ones in there. As graduation approached, started to look at the job market. And, at first it was really just limited, right? Getting onto, and I don't know if you all are familiar with, the SBL, AAR job announcements that they'll offer and whatnot. And so it was, really, really small as the time for me to finish approach. So it felt a little bit like I was hurling towards a cliff. But actually it started to get a lot better as the months went by. So just to encourage you all, and it's still there. Before, when I would get onto the SBL job announcement, for example, there would only be like 2 or 3 announcements there, and just clicking on it every day, sometimes like every few hours, to see if something would come up. And now it's like scrolling down 2 or 3 pages of job announcements, right? So there has been a big shift, but with that too comes this competitiveness as well. And the importance of the CV, I found, was that it's like that first thing that people look at. And especially you, Carissa, that you mentioned that you're in arts, and this, all this visual stuff, just that alone already is the thing that pops up. So I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but really, number one, and the shocking thing, when I had this, I had professional help with my CV when I first did it, was when the person who helped me, and I'll explain later who that was, when they just changed the font, just the font alone, because I had it in Times New Roman, and I would look at it, I was like, this just doesn't look like it's something good, something that pops. She changed the font, and oh my God, like it was just a completely different document. And I had the same stuff on there, right? And so just the font alone, and I'll show you which font I use, which I would honestly recommend. And that alone, I think, was already eye-catching enough for the people when, because, when they sit down and they have your file there, that is the first thing they're going to look at is your CV. And really, is it going to be that eye-popping visual thing that's there? And really where that's going to happen is with the font. Now, what we'll go through today, or in this hour that we're here, the person who helped me out, and so I don't know if you all are familiar with The Professor Is In. This is where I got my help, and the person who runs this, she is very strict and very just straightforward in her language. And so if it comes across as that when I'm talking about, how to divide it in the sections up, because many people will be like, well, I really, really have to include this. And I felt the same way when The Professor Is In. People were helping me with my CV. They would tell me, don't include this. And I'd be like, well, why not? It's one of my most shining features. But in reality, what I really would want to recommend, I mean, it's up to you what you're going to put in your CV, of course, but this was helped by people who really know the job market and really know people, well, not only know people who are sitting in hiring committees, but people who are or were frequently on hiring committees and what they would look for, right? So I really did end up trusting their process. And I can say this, and this is not me bragging, and really, I am not that of a standout scholar. And you'll see with my CV, like you'll see like some things that there's not a lot there really, but it looks good because of the help I got. Is that I did, when I started applying for jobs, I in total got like 6 interviews, right? And so I really attribute a lot of that help I got to the CV. So I was very happy that I put my trust into what to include and what not, and what not to include, and that really did help out for sure. So Carissa, you'd mentioned, just to do a brief introduction, because Matata just joined us as well too. So you said you are in your comps phase. Have you started looking at the job market already? Or have you started diving into any of those
No,
job searches?
I
Okay.
haven't really had time to even think about it, but even as a student, you're asked to submit your CV for different things.
Mhm.
And so
Yes.
like I've had to make a CV on the fly just to have for like when you apply for a new hall or anything else, they want a
Indeed.
CV.
Okay, good. Yeah, so that this will be helpful with that as well too. Good. Matata, can you introduce yourself a little bit here and tell me where you are in your program and what program you're in and whatnot? Yeah.
I finished the program last year. I just defended my dissertation last July. So I am in the process of,
Congratulations.
thank you so much, of finding something for my OPT. The job is, as you said, is tough.
Mhm.
It's tough. It's not so easy as I thought. I send a lot of, application in different places, but I don't get the answer. So that means that maybe there should be something which is not maybe good in the CV. In the first, when people see my CV, they are more interested. Many things come. But when they take and I don't get the feedback, that means maybe they found something which is not probably fitting their request or their recommendation or they want to get.
Okay. What program was this in? What did?
I did history and the cultural study of religion.
Okay, history of religion. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. And on the other side of that, please don't be discouraged when of the 6 interviews I did get, I applied. You should see my file of all the applicants. I've applied for like 100 jobs, no joke. Like it was just, but that's how many were coming out. And out of those 6, other than the 6, the rest, I didn't even receive a response, right? And some of them from some that I thought I was really a good fit for the program, I could think of a few right now. And, you know, it's just something, you know, that it's, don't take personally.
Yeah.
Even those who are on the hiring committees, you know, recognize that it's you know, it's kind of messed up. They don't respond, but you know, they're overwhelmed at so much, you know, because you'll end up seeing a lot of these people, for example, when you applied at AAR and SPL, and you're like, oh yeah, I applied for that position and I didn't receive any response, and you just see them kind of like, oh, right, and you know, but it's just part of the whole system. That so don't be discouraged. You'll I'm sure you'll land something that it'll pop up. Yeah. So do I have the yeah, so share screen? Excellent. Good. So let me first open up the blog, because this is open access information, surprisingly. Like, what you have to pay for with Professor is in is for the actual editors to look at it and work on it and fix it themselves after you work on it. That's what you end up paying for. But the information itself, that's open access in their blog. So let me get this open, and I'll put the website, the link here in a minute on chat. So here's a Professor is in website, and what you'll find, so Karen Kelsky, she's the main editor. She's the one who she's the owner of this company, of this editing company. And are you all familiar with this? Have you heard of this at all before? Somewhat, yeah. She's written books on this stuff. She actually is really helpful, I would say. But just without having to pay, that could get a little pricey, like for her to edit your philosophy of teaching and all. It could get a little pricey. You can go onto her blog, and in the blog, if you notice, I'm on the section of how to write CVs, and there's many different sections here that you could go through on different aspects of not only the application process for a job, but for landing tenure track, for writing a tenure application. Like, she does a lot of this as well too. I'm really plugging her right now, and I didn't intend to. But so we'll go to the how to write CVs, and within that you have these subcategories, right? And there's like, banish these words for your CV. But here's the one that I would really recommend is Dr. Karen's Rules for Academic CV. And this is basically what I'm going to follow when talking about my CV and showing my CV. So you all can go to this blog and see the reasoning behind this, and maybe we can go through it later as we're going through my CV itself. But this is really where she like breaks it down just by sections: general formatting rules, and then she'll go down here into heading material, content, and in content here's like education, professional appointments, publications. So here she lays out the order in which you should put all of this particular information that will be part of your CV. Now, I've gotten some pushback from some people in how I ordered my information, and you'll see where particularly the pushback came. I'll show you that here in a minute on my CV. The reason this order is laid out in this way, she mentions, and I'm inclined very much to agree with her order, is because she's trying to put first those parts that are most competitive and that are going to highlight the competitive aspects of what's going on within the job market. And so this is why she chooses this particular order. So for example, education actually comes first, not so much for the competitiveness. And we need to be really careful with what language we use when we're putting down our degrees. Because for example, she says here, always no exceptions, list by degree, not by institution. So you can see how, she's very pithy and very just straightforward and somewhat, harsh with her language. Do not spell out Doctor of Philosophy. it sounds pretentious, right? And so that, of course, is a subjective opinion, but you know, she has been on a lot of hiring committees. So again, that's why I was like, okay, you know, she might have something there. And you know, I'm inclined to agree with her as well too. But I don't want to say anything about if your CV has Doctor of Philosophy later, and you spell it out, that is of course your decision to make, right? After which, this is where we start looking at the competitive aspects of putting those things in order, and professional appointments or employment. Now, there's going to be a little bit of a controversy here, like I said, because this is not going to include, you'll see here, not listed under professional employment are adjunct positions, for example. And most people are like, well, then what do I put here? So this is more appointments that were contracted position of 1+ years of length. So these are actually like if you were a visiting professor or for example, I put, and I'll show that later, as a teacher at a high school. These are contracted full-time positions. Really, this is what people want to see when they are trying to situate you within institutionally, right? And where have you worked? Because for a adjunct position or a postdoc position, it's really difficult still to position you institutionally and experience-wise, because many of these positions sometimes just go to a person who, for example, has that fellowship, like the Newhall Fellowship, which really doesn't put you within an institutional background, or it's given to, like, let's say a PhD student or a candidate who is doing that work already. So you might as well go ahead and teach a class on it as well also. So that really doesn't speak to a full-time position within an institutional background as well. So I just got a comment here. And please feel free to interrupt me. You don't have to do it on chat. Vivian, if you would like to actually ask your question and introduce yourself a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So I'm Vivian Wells, and I am sort of like in between around third year. I had to take a little pause, but so I'm finishing up the end of my coursework right now. And interesting enough, last week I said I need to start working on my academic CV. So when I saw this workshop, I was like, I'm there, this is great. But my question was, so where it says education and it's talking about the if you only a year or so from your PhD, then how to write that. But if you are third year, fourth year, do you not write anything at all? Or do you say that you're in a program or?
Yeah, you can say you're a PhD student, and I'll show that here in a second, how you can lay that out. But yeah, at that point, it would just still be PhD student, because really where a change will occur is when your dissertation proposal is approved. And at that point, then you are a PhD candidate. And from there, you can list your dissertation's title as well too within your CV.
Okay.
Because you should at that point have something from there. So good question. Thank you. And again, sorry, what program are you in?
I'm in historical and cultural studies. So I'm focusing on history of Christianity.
Okay, history of Christianity. Good.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right.
I have a question on education, just
yes.
before you proceed. In some of the school I applied, they would ask, for example, for the PhD degree, master degree, whatsoever, the year you start and the year you finish it. So it all depends on the place where you are applying. In the system or the model you have presented here, I don't saw here, even the school. Some other places they ask the school you have been there.
Absolutely.
How can you make it in a general way?
Okay, and so this is you already hit a really good question here. Is when you are applying, most of the time, if they don't include some sort of a specific, then just keep it basic, like we're going to find in this particular style right here. unless they are asking for something specific. Now you'll see when you read through the professor is in blog, through Kalski's blog, you'll see many instances where she'll say, leave this out unless the institution specifically calls for it, right? And that's where you have to do a little bit of digging or research. And the kind of the response that Kelsky will give on her blog is, well, seek advice from trusted, or seek trusted advisor here for information. And that really doesn't leave you anywhere. Who I would always recommend you should ask is your advisor, because your advisor likely is going to have a lot of that experience already. You could also contact me at any time as well too, as if you have any like question on like, well, what should I do here, or what should I do there, and we can help look into like where is does the institution say somewhere. But really, if the institution is not specifying something, it's because they're really not going to specifically be looking for it. So just keep it basic. But if they are asking for begin date, they specifically asking for start date and end date, then I would include that. But don't Matata, don't assume that's what all other institutions are going to want if they don't ask for it. See, that's also a really important thing to keep in mind, because CVs, even though they're super long, especially compared to resumes, in resumes, you should only include certain things that's then that a CV would have that a resume shouldn't. And you'll see that and vice versa as well too, is that you really want to keep it short and sweet. You want to just condense and distill your information as much as possible, because there is a lot in there. I mean, you're going to be listing publications, you're going to be listing talks, you're going to be listing, extracurricular activities or activities of service to the school that don't really have to do with academics so much, like if you served on a certain committee or whatever. And so there's going to be a lot already there for the reader of your application, that you don't want to mire them with unnecessary information for what they would consider unnecessary. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Good. So that also is a very good question. Let me actually go through formatting as is recommended, and then I'll open up my CV, and then we can look at the order and the style and what I did. So general rules, of course, 1-inch margins on all 4 sides, right? We don't want to mess with that. This is something she doesn't mention in this blog, but I've seen people include pictures in there. A picture that's like really popular right now with resumes, especially in the tech industry. I've heard, I have people close to me who are part of that, even within HR. And I've heard of a lot of HR people saying, yeah, we love seeing the picture because it humanizes the text and the resume. In CVs, that really hasn't caught up yet, especially because right now the academic world, including in the hiring, they really don't want to be influenced by a physical features, as they say, even though that is kind of changing now. And it is kind of a little bit of a touchy subject, with the DE&I going on and everything, and presenting a picture. I know that when I sent in a video once when I was applying for a certain position at a school, they didn't watch it because they didn't want to be swayed by how I had my physical features, if you will, right? They just wanted to keep it blank. But that of course is going to be up to you. I've never included a picture. Most of the CVs that I've seen, with the exception of one, don't have a picture as well too. So I would just err on that side on not including a picture. But again, that's going to be up to you. 12-point font, and this is throughout, right? We don't want to change or have different sizes of fonts when it comes to like the subtitles that we'll be hitting. Single spaced is important, although you can, you can now play with the spacing, and you can add like maybe a 1.15 spacing, so it's not all clumped up that it feels like that you can, but make sure it's not double spaced, or even that half 0.5 font or 0.5 spacing. You don't want it too big. So as it's mentioned here, no switching font sizes except the candidate's name at the top, right? And you can go with the 14 or 16 point font. Subheadings only in bold. We'll see this as well too. The italics only for titles of journals or books, right? And she like, Brits, I'm talking to you, like she's very direct in her language. I guess in British CVs, italics are used a lot. Just keep it to the titles of books and journals, because I can see this as well too, because italics can really direct the attention of the reader to certain places that you really might not want them to be looking at, and you just want to leave their attention to focus on the things that they want to focus on. So that's important. 1 or 2 full returns. So left justify all elements in the CV. So this is pretty straightforward stuff too. Do not full right justify any element in a CV, as I mentioned. And this is also like a big deal in CVs, as opposed to resumes, is no bullet points at all. And this is something that not only the professor is in recommends, but this is pretty standard format within CVs, is just not using bullet points at all. No box or column formatting. No continued headings. Like just keep it flowing straightforward. What we want to do though is try to keep a section of a heading within that page and it not jump into the next page. I know that's difficult, but as you move on with your CV, you're going to be adding stuff. And this is why this format is so important, because when you start adding things like columns and you start adding like these weird justifications, the moment you go in and add something, which is something you should be doing constantly, right? You'll be offering a guest lecture. You've published a paper. You've written a book review, right? You want to go quickly and add it in there. You want to keep that simple format so it's easily added in there, and you're just constantly adding without any issues. When talking about time, like putting in times, just include the year. When you start adding in like months and days, it can get a little convoluted for the reader. And what they really want to do is see how you are academically advancing, especially when a CV is used for, like, let's say a fellowship, or later on for when you're applying for tenure, right? Which we'll all have one day. Definitely will, right? Yes, absolutely. Keep positive, right? Is that they want to see how you are advancing by year, not by like day or month, but how is this person going through their academic career year by year, right? So this is why just keeping it to the year is really helpful. And I'll show how it should look according to the system. No narrative verbiage anywhere. And this is really what's the stark contrast to your resume writing, right? Because resumes are all about the proper style of narrative that is going to effectively address what you've done, what you do. A CV does not do that at all. No narrative at all whatsoever. No description of duties under the courses that are taught. Just lay out the course itself. No paragraphs describing books or articles. There might be one exception, and again, in reference to Matata's question earlier, there might be an instance where, like, a fellowship that you're applying for and is looking for a CV, that they might be asking for, give a brief synopsis of your dissertation, right? So this might be the case only in a CV where you add that narrative on there. I can tell you though that I never came across in any of the job applications I applied for, that it asked for to give a description of your dissertation, right? It just didn't say anything at all. And again, if it doesn't ask for it, assume that they want the most basic, the most just quick information, and that would then assume to not include an abstract, a short abstract of your dissertation in your CV. Yeah, I would just leave it out. Maybe if at this point in like candidacy, you might want to include it because it hasn't been published yet. It hasn't been put onto ProQuest. But once it's on ProQuest, they can just go and look at the abstract themselves if they want to, right? So that's where the difference is with that. Any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
One more question. It's about the book and articles. Honestly, I've written a lot of things.
Okay.
I don't know how much book you can put in this line
In the CV?
in the CV. How many articles can you put? That's a little bit confusing, but I wrote selected. I don't put more than 10 things because they are so too many books or too many articles. I choose all the recently written articles without taking the one which is in the past. Is it good, or shall I mention them in because you said in the order that they were written?
Yeah, so excellent question. And what I would say is put it all in there. I've seen CVs that go on pages and pages of people who've published, right? Remember, the professional appointments and publications, these are the most competitive. When I saw this, and when I was trained on this format, or the editors helped me on this format, there was only one instance where they said specifically to limit the amount of things that you put on there, and that is, let me find it here. Teaching experience. Look at how low that goes in the order of things, right? Where it's like you think that would be the most competitive thing other than publications I should be putting out there, right? But remember, adjunct positions, for example, postdoc positions, these are they're not part of contracted positions. They're not part of full-time positions. So they're not gonna be as competitive as a full-time position. And so when you're laying out your teaching experience, it says there, condense it, don't exceed past 15 points or positions that you've had there. Like for TA, if you've done TA positions, if you've done 20 TA positions, I would try and condense that down to, if of those 20 TA positions, 10 of them have all been for example, for me, Hebrew Bible, TAing for professors for a Hebrew Bible, I would condense that down to actually one entry. And I might add there, this is where you can add maybe something where it says, or you can add the years where you were TAing. And if it was 10, that means you can add a lot of years in there. You can add a big section. That's where it's important. But for publications, I didn't see in any moment that what they say, or ever in the CVs that I've seen, where they limit that. So I would say, put it all in there. Put it all in there. And if it's pages, good for you. I'm jealous, actually. Good for you. Yeah.
But I am something which really puzzled the readers. I have articles in Japanese. I put them in Romanized things. So sometimes I have to translate them in English. But you are right. One of the editors said that is Germany. We need all these things in English. How can I change all those things? Because even if I put the title in English, there is a translation, but somebody would look the article. If they check, they won't find it.
Yeah. So where I personally would put translations for articles
Yeah.
would be in service. If you go down service to profession, that's where I would place that particular category. And you can say the name of you can put there like translation of, and then the name of the article, and then the journal and the year, right? And
Yeah.
that tells me, like, I've done peer reviews, and I put that in service to the profession as well too, right? Is that the journal sent me an article, I read through the article, I gave my opinion on what things needed to be fixed before publication, and then I sent it back. That's obviously not a publication of mine, right? And so that seems similar to a translation. That's not your publication, but it is your work in the fact that you translated it. So that is something I would say is service to the profession there, where you can add with that. Yeah, so that's a good question right there. Okay, so let me bring up my CV for you all. Notice first and foremost the font. And this is the font because when it got switched to this, it really did stand out. And so that Jaramond font is something that I would highly recommend you all should use, because it really has this sort of professionalness to it that I think really made it stand out. Now, of course, this is going to vary. And if, of course, like you say, if you don't want to, once you are within a professional position, right, and or you just don't want to put in your personal address, you can use the institution, the school where you're at. But since you will be, if you're like applying for jobs, it's very important that you do add your personal address there. But at the same time too, what you'll want to do is also, you might also want to include that institution that you're at, their address too. So you can do that. And remember it said there, don't use columns. This was like the only times that columns were allowed in this case. But if you don't want to add both, that's up to you as well also. Now notice as we're going down through the subtitles here, that they are in bold and they're all in caps. And that's what makes them stand out, but they are still within the same size of the font, right? Because we don't want to get too much into it. Now, for the education, if you notice here on the side, I have the degrees, and then, you just do a quick indent and then you add. So for example, here I have the program, the institution, and the year that I received, or that I defended, basically, is when I put there the year. So I don't have a span of how long I took. Again, if the institution is asking for that, then you can add that there. But for a default, you can just add when you finished or propose a date. That's what I had before I did finish. So when the anticipated date that you will finish this. Now, obviously, you're not telling the future. You can't tell the future. So this is just an estimation according to what your pace of writing that you're doing. You want to play it there smartly, right? And how you do that. But and when you apply for jobs, they're going to look at this as well too, because when you start writing proposals for books, for example, they'll ask you, how long do you intend to write this as well too? So you'll have to be able to gauge how fast you're writing and the discipline that you have. So they'll look at this as well too. And notice here I have my dissertation with the title, and that's it. So they can go to ProQuest and they can put in this title, and then they can look at the abstract there. Yeah, Carissa.
So I noticed under professional development, you include the location, but under education, you did not. Is that normal to not?
Yes. that is something that, that is of course a choice that you would like to do. I left just the institution because I am just going to assume that the hiring committee or whoever's looking at this knows where the institution is at. That's a big assumption, right? You can put the place where the institution is. That is up to you. Since you now start diving in, so for example here, once I get into professional employments, right, I have my full-time positions. These aren't adjunct positions. You'll see here that it now switches to the date is on the side, right? And give yourself that indent space there, and then you hit that indent, and so it can all be justified and in line. And yes, I include now there the location, because something like, the San Juan Diego Catholic High School, there's actually like a few in the country. And so I included the city, and which raises a good point too, because I was teaching adjunct at St. Mary's College. And for goodness sakes, like every state has a St. Mary's, right? Like there's so many St. Mary's out there. So that's where it might be a good idea to add the city there. So that's or the location. That's something definitely to think about. Okay, so professional employment here again, full-time positions that I had at that, and don't be shy for if you've taught at high school, elementary, middle school level, or something else in another capacity that was full-time, I would definitely include that there. Publications. So here's where we start dividing it into even smaller subheadings, right? So for the publication, again, the subheading here, the main subheading is in all caps and bold, but I have sections on books and encyclopedia entries, for example. So those are in bold, but not in caps. And depending on where you're at in the process of publication, don't put forthcoming unless you have signed a contract, right? I have signed now a contract for this book that I'm working on. For example, right now I am in the talks with Fortress Press to write a book on Paul and purity. I can't put that as forthcoming because a contract has not been signed yet, right? And so when you put forthcoming, make sure you put that after you have signed a contract and it's for sure. Now, there's another level that you can put here too, is in print. And in print means that you have submitted a manuscript, a written manuscript, and now it's in the process of printing, meaning you can't give a date of publication yet, but it is in print. That is the next level. After then it's published, that's when then you can put the date of when the article, the book, the encyclopedia, whatever it is, that once it's published and you have a date now, a copyright publication, that's when you can put the date there within that column as well too. Now, honors and awards. This is another one where you'll want to do a little bit of digging, or just to make sure that they're not specifying. For those awards that were monetary compensations, most of the time you just want to leave the amount of money that you got out, right? That's something that you don't want to say unless they are asking for it. And you will come across instances where they are asking for this particular information, right? So that's where you want to do a little bit of digging there as well too. For a conference activity, like paper presentations and whatnot, just be sure to include the title, where it was held, and the year. Notice there I did add a month and a date, because there's certain conferences that might be held at multiple times in the year. So that's where it's okay if you add like a month along with the year in there. But that, of course, will be up to you as well too. If you notice here, though, I did include the year on that column, like I did with everything else as well too. Now, and sorry if I'm going through a little quickly on this through my CV. This is I'll also offer a link where you can see it online. That it's posted online for you all to look at. The additional experience or teaching experience. This is where I laid out all of my adjunct and my TA experience. Now notice how it's divided up. I divided it up by institution. And as I go down, I do a small indent and I put just the title of the course and the semester that it was offered. So spring 2022, I offered a course, Paul's Letters at St. Mary's College of California, right? So that specifies which St. Mary's it is. Berkeley School of Theology, I adjuncted for them for many years, right? So I have a pretty good list there as well too. But remember, you don't want to go more than 15 within the category of the institution. Graduate Theological Union offered some, Pacific School of Theology, also an SFTS. So, you know, there was a few instances. After that, professional services. So this is more like peer reviews, like I said. So this is that's where you can put the translations, Matata, as well too.
Yeah.
Within professional service or service to the profession, and then to the department or university. So have you worked in, for example, like when I was introduced by Chai, that I was on the DE&I select committee. I was on the GTU program review committee. So, like these committees, you really do want to say how you've helped out. You don't want to just show like highlight. I have a lot of publications. You don't want to be that one trick pony, right? Where it says like you want to just show that span of what you've done. But, this comes lower in the totem pole of, as they would say, of competitiveness as well too. And then, I decided to include, I gotta add that space there. I decided to include things that I've done in the community that's outside of academia as well, just so they can see, I've done work. That's up to you if you want to include that. Areas of teaching or professional development, of course, too. Any conferences that you might have attended, or something that builds up your professionalism or your position of professionalism. Also, areas of teaching where you can teach. Be brief with this. Just give something quickly, like I could teach about Hebrew Bible, New Testament, Biblical Hebrew, Koine Greek, biblical languages, the Bible and culture. Like, just be brief, but don't throw this whole thing in there, right? Just be modest, but show where your strengths are for sure. And of course, always languages. You'll want to include that, and professional memberships. Some people will say you should include references in the CV. Yes, if this is a job or fellowship application, include references in there, and I wouldn't go more than 5, right? And so I did have my references when I included my CV, and it sounds counterintuitive because you say don't be like a resume. In a resume, that's like one of the things you have to have. This is very much like a resume, is including your references. I was surprised actually when the professor recommended or told me that I should put my references in there, but it is helpful to the reader of your application when you have that in there as well too. Yeah. Any quick questions?
Yeah, I have a
before
question
I close
about
my CV?
order.
Yeah.
Sometimes you put like most recent at the top and work backwards, but then at the bottom there, they were listed in the opposite. Or how do you know whether to do reverse chronology or what?
And yes, thank you for that. That I followed the so where was it that we saw the reverse chronology? There was one particular
Mostly
instance.
it's reverse, and at the very bottom you have, if you scroll on down for your things, this is in the regular order, and most everything else on that on your CV, you would have put the 2022 to present at the top and worked backwards, but you didn't here.
Right. And so this That's a good point. That's a good question. When you read through the Professor is in blog, she says there, Kelsey, there's some instances where you go this reverse hurdle, and she'll say, and another instance is where I add here for professional development, again, I add the month, but notice I don't have the year here on the side as well too. She's like, don't ask me why, this is just what became part of the standard CV writing for some
Okay.
ridiculous reason, right? And
Good to know.
so, yeah, there's just going to be some rules that we don't know why, but it's become the standard practice. And at the end, I was like, fine, I'll just do what you say. You're the one who knows, and who's done this for many, many years. And so, yeah, thank you for bringing up that point for sure. So I really would recommend going through that blog. Now, let me include that link here for you. There's that. And then let me open up my, give me a second here. I'll open up the link where you can find my CV that is posted online. So if you want to go take a look, again, that's from the Hispanic Theological Initiative bio. There's a little link that's there that says CV, and that's an updated CV that I have there that you can all go, if you want a template, and see how it would look. But really, font, you all. I mean, I can't stress this, how much font really helped. And really just stick to that order that we went through. That's something that's really helpful for sure. Any other questions before we end today? Well, I hope this was helpful for you all. Yeah, good. Yeah, and good luck out there. Yeah,
Thank
it's,
you.
it is what it is, and we do what we can for sure. But please feel free to, this is my email. Please, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email, and I'm always open to helping out, or taking a look at something. Yeah, happy to do that.
Just want to say thank you for sharing your CV link too, because that just kind of helps with like creating your template and all that. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. You're welcome.
And thank you for your time today.
Of course.
Thank you, Eric. It was very, very clear. I would prefer to add the link you have sent, because I didn't get it in my computer, so that I can check it very easily when I'm alone. So
Yeah.
Okay.
So on that note, friends, thank you so much for being here this morning for this workshop. And Eric, thank you so much for your wisdom and for sharing the tips that you have learned from the best in the field.
Yes.
Yeah. And I wish you all the very best as you are applying for jobs.
Indeed.
Those of you who are applying, Matata, especially for you. Thank you again. And I'll just plug in one program that is coming up, which is on the 19th. In a couple of weeks, we have Victoria Price, who will be sharing a few tips on how to use your social media profiles to present your academic, achievements, so that you'll be, more appealing when people search your name, that kind of thing. So thank you again for this morning, for your time. Thanks again, Eric. Take care.
Yeah,
everybody.
of course. Yeah, have a good day.
Thanks, Eric. Bye.